This is the best road race bike in 2024. That's right, the Focus Izalco Max 9.8 is my road race bike of the year for 2024. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why this is one of the best all-round racing bikes available today, beating out stiff competition from other major brands such as Specialized and Canyon. Before we go any further though, a quick thank you to Met Helmets for sponsoring BikeRadar's 2024 Bike of the Year Mega Test. Their support enables us to make these huge independent group tests possible so we can bring you the best bike reviews on YouTube. Now, I've ridden loads of bikes over the past 12 months, but for BikeRadar's 2024 Bike of the Year, I took 3 big hitters into the final round. The Specialized Tarmac SL8 Pro, Canyon's Ultimate CF SL8 Aero, and the Focus Izalco Max 9.8. All 3 were excellent, but there could only be one winner. To find out why this is the road race bike you should buy this year, stick around to the end of the video. Let's start with prices, because there's no denying that race bikes are incredibly expensive nowadays. Now, I'm showing my age here, but when I got into racing back in the early 2010s, I bought a giant TCR frame set off a mate for 500 quid, an Ultegra group set for about 400 and some fulcrum aluminium wheels for another 300 or so. I threw it all together with some aluminium finishing kit and some Conti tyres that I already had, and that was it, all in for less than 1500 quid. In 2024, you'd be lucky to get an Ultegra group set for that kind of money, let alone a bike that you wouldn't mind turning up to a local crit or chain gang on. The Specialized Tarmac SL8 Pro, for example, cost a whopping £8,000 or $8,500. You can look at that 2 ways. On one hand, that's a lot cheaper than the 12 grand World Tour spec S-Works Tarmac SL8. On the other, £8,000 is still a huge amount of money, especially if you're going to be racing that bike and potentially crashing it at some point too. In comparison, the Canyon Ultimate CF SL8 Aero looks a relative bargain at just under £4,800 here in the UK. Now, unfortunately, that specific model isn't available in the US, so if you want a Canyon Ultimate with Ultegra Di2, you'll need to move up a level and get the Ultimate CF SLX8 Di2, which costs just under $6,300. Now, the Focus Izalco Max 9.8 sits between the two at just under £6,600. Sadly, Focus bikes aren't currently available in the US, but if you're shopping in Europe, then this bike will set you back just under €6,800. Whichever way you cut it, these are all expensive bikes. Of course, it is worth mentioning that all 3 brands also make cheaper race bikes. You can get a Specialized Tarmac SL7 with a 12-speed Shimano 105 group set for less than half the price of the SL8 model that I tested, for example. In terms of builds, I chose to test bikes that showcase what I think of as an ideal amateur racer spec. So that means Shimano Ultegra Di2 or SRAM Force Axis group sets rather than the pro-level Dura Ace or SRAM Red, for example. All of the bikes have Aero wheels, good tyres, carbon cockpits, and the Specialized and Canyon models also come with a power meter. I know I've moaned a bit about prices already, but I do think it is fair to say that you get a lot of bike for your money these days at least. Now, all 3 are a massive step up in every area on what I used to race on a decade ago. Where we see a divergence of approach is at the cockpits though. The Specialized Tarmac and the Focus Izalco Max, for example, both use non-integrated cockpits with a standard stem. In my opinion, this is great as it allows a lot of customization. The handlebars you get with both bikes are absolutely fine, but if you want a different shape, different width or whatever, then you can change it and you're not stuck with something that isn't quite perfect. On the Canyon Ultimate though, you get Canyon's proprietary full carbon integrated handlebar, and that's the only bar that's compatible with its fork. Now, the reason for this is that while the Specialized and the Focus both have standard round steerers and take a normal stem, the Canyon has a kind of quill stem system, and the Canyon cockpit is the only thing that fits it. It's true that you do get the adjustable wings on the Canyon bar that allow you to change the widths, and you know, that's a cool feature. But the problem is, I don't think most people need an adjustable handlebar. They just need the one width that's right for them and that particular bike. So for me, as soon as I got the Ultimate home, I slammed the bar into its narrowest 39cm setting and just left it there for good. And what I really miss is the ability to adjust the stem length, which can't be done on this bike without changing the entire handlebar. And what's worse is that it's not even clear if you can even buy a replacement handlebar to get a different stem length. In the past, Canyon has told me that you can, but it isn't listed as a spare part on their website. So even if you technically can, it's not at all clear what sizes are available or how much it would even cost. And for me, these bike fit things are fundamental. Maybe I'm just being picky, but on my road bike, for example, I run a 120mm stem with a 36cm handlebar. And the fact that I would never be able to do that on the Canyon Ultimate is just really frustrating. Now, of course, if you're less fussy about your bike fit, then maybe this won't be a major issue for you. And fit limitations aside, it is a good cockpit. I like the drop shape, it looks cool, it's comfortable. All of those boxes are ticked, but it's just not for me. And I think that that last part is really key. With Canyon, because it's a direct sales brand, their business model incentivizes them to minimize the amount of customization on offer. If everyone who bought a Canyon bike got a choice of bar width, stem length, crank length, gearing, tires, etc., well, that's just going to slow down the process of building each bike and ultimately cost Canyon money, which they'll want to pass on to us in the form of higher prices. And to be clear, I think that's absolutely fair. One of the big reasons the Canyon is so much cheaper than the other two bikes is because of that business model and the fact that you get these one-size-fits-all solutions. At the end of the day, you have to decide whether you're happy to make that potential compromise to save that bit of money, or whether you'd rather spend a bit more to get something that's more adjustable. In terms of the frame sets and geometry, all are, as you'd expect, fairly similar. Each uses a mix of truncated aerofoil tube shapes with aggressive riding positions and steep angles designed to offer quick handling and a lively ride feel. Riding them back to back though, there are some noticeable differences. The Tarmac SL8 Pro, for example, feels super reactive. The stack is low and the steering is very quick, meaning it feels great when you're climbing or making small adjustments to your line. In contrast, the Focus felt relatively mellow for a race bike. The reach to the bars is slightly longer and the head tube angle is a little slacker. And as a result, the handling is just slowed down a bit. At slower speeds, this can make it feel a little more sluggish than the Tarmac, but the payoff is that it's a little calmer at high speeds. The Canyon Ultimate splits the difference. It's not quite as lively as the Tarmac, but it's a little more nippy than the Focus. Overall, it represents a good balance in that respect, though to be fair, handling is quite a personal thing. Personally, I think all three bikes handle really well, it just depends on what you're looking for. If you do crits or group rides on twisty roads with lots of sharp corners, then the Tarmac feels perfect for that. But on the other hand, if you're a less confident bike handler or you do a lot of long, fast descents, then the Focus might be a marginally better pick. In terms of things that I didn't like, well, I've already spoken at length about the proprietary bar on the Canyon Ultimate, so I won't go over that again. But beyond that, the only thing that I could really criticise is that it needs better tyres. The Shorby 1 tubeless tyres are fine, but they are not the fastest. This is a relatively easy problem to fix though. I did also feel that the 50 and 62mm deep rims may be a touch too deep for that bike. They do feel fast on the flat, but when you're climbing, they do make the bike feel just a little bit more sluggish than I had expected. I also felt that the Tarmac SL8 Pro could have benefited from 28C tyres rather than the 26C tyres that you get as standard. The main issue I had with that bike though was that the brake rotors were just so loud in the wet. Now, I don't know what it is about SRAM's cheaper Paceline rotors, but in my experience, they are consistently the worst when it comes to brake squeal in wet weather. It got so bad at one point that I felt like I was playing Untitled Goose Game whenever I was riding through quiet villages. Again, it's not the end of the world. Brake rotors are relatively cheap and easy to replace, but still, when I was testing that bike, it was incredibly annoying. With the Focus, on the other hand, there wasn't really anything to complain about. The only obvious thing is missing from the spec compared to the other two bikes is a power meter. If you've already got one, then that's of course no problem, but if you don't and you want one, then it's obviously something you'll need to factor into the overall cost. So if it was my money on the line then, I would buy the Focus Izalco Max 9.8. And while it's fair to say that the paint job on this model is a little bit plain, it's incredibly hard to criticise the Focus in terms of its spec, its ride quality, how adjustable it is, and so on. And that's why the Focus Izalco Max 9.8 is my 2024 race bike of the year. But what do you think? Have you ridden any of these bikes and did I make the right choice? As always, leave a comment below to let me know what you think. And if you want even more race bikes, why not check out this video?